Hey everybody, it's Marty, the JavaScript party, and my buddy Rhett, and we are coding. It is 8:32 on March 27th, so we're almost into spring. We definitely are having spring weather right now. It's probably like 60 degrees, 55, 60 degrees, and um, let's see if I hit this fire weather alert. Think if it'll tell me what the well, it says it's 44 degrees. I don't. I think it was warmer than that out there, but it definitely felt warmer. It's super sunny. It's super beautiful outside, and then and then uh, let's see. So that's that. So the temperature's nice. Oh, definitely was feeling very sick earlier this week. Feel a lot better now. I think, but I cannot believe how much I'm sleeping. I literally went to bed at 9 p.m. last night and did not wake up until like a minute or two before my alarm went off at 7 a.m. So I don't know if you're counting, but that's 10 hours of sleep, which is unheard of for me, especially considering I probably got like 9-ish the day before. And I've been sleeping a lot lately, which is very unusual for me, but it's nice. Enjoy. It's nice and getting to enjoy sleep. All right, so just to sort of, I know I keep saying this over and over again, but the things that are happening in visualization are happening whenever, however they happen. I'm not putting any sort of things, any sort of code, um, like all this stuff. There's nothing protecting any of this from running as often as it damn well feels like. If it wants to run it 1,000 times in a second, it can. If it doesn't want to run it for 5 seconds, it can wait. There's no. But in my animation service, these are locked into the actual updating of the screen. These are happening on something called a request animation frame, and the JavaScript engine. I believe it's the engine. It could be something higher up in the browser, but something in the browser is attempting to run this code 60 times a second, so that it looks good to your eye. So in here, I don't want to do any calculations. I only want to do reads and updates to the DOM and nothing else. I don't want to be trying to figure things out or anything like that. The figuring out stuff happens in the visualization, so they happen in parallel. They have no direct relationship with each other. And I think that's extremely important. I was trying to think this morning, and if you were writing code in like 1979, 1980, 81, 82, you're generally thinking kind of like in a Python script or something like this code happens and that code happens and then it's done. The coding's done. But then if you were coding of mostly like in the late 80s, early 90s, uh, up until maybe the late 80s or early 90s, late 90s possibly, you were taught more in a what they would call like a bus architecture or some sort of looping architecture, something that's happening over and over again, and basically every time it happens, you run the code again, and then it doesn't do anything, and that was like sort of as embedded systems started to rise, and embedded systems is just like code that's inside of a system. It's not part of a computer that you're interacting with. It's more like code that's inside of, like, let's say you had like I have this little light thing that makes different light colors and stuff, and it's programmable. Inside of there's a chip, and there's code that's running, and it's probably running on some sort of loop, and um, and it wakes up, and that's like a bus architecture. That's like it just runs over and over and over again. And then for some strange reason, I don't know why I would be interested, but that whole mindset of code running in a loop over and over again sort of became an anti-pattern. Like for some reason, they did not want to teach that. They didn't want to think that. They wanted everyone to think in terms of like objects, and objects just running in like sort of one synchronous set of things. And that's kind of just how everything was for a long time. And then, but they tried to they kind of acted like the whole looping thing didn't exist. But like, and it's weird because the early generation of developers, all like most of one of the very first things we spent a lot of time was probably the first thing once you got into advanced coding, the first thing you spend a lot of time on is various kinds of loops, for loops, while loops, do loops, all these loops. That's all you were doing was loops, 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 loops. And then for some reason we completely got away from even thinking in the concept of loops. And I know that I once worked with this really brilliant developer, and I tried to explain to him the way the looping works with, like we were trying to build out like an AI sort of implementation where there was like work that had to be done, but we didn't. And what he was doing is basically he would just add work to a cycle. Like, so some code's running and he would just add work to it. And I was like, the problem is that the CPU will just get maxed out because you just keep adding things. What you have to do is you have to break things down into smaller jobs and then have a simple little looping thing that looks to see if there's any jobs. And then if there's any jobs, then it gets that job going. And what happens is once it gets the job going, then it knows, if it sees another job, to get another job going, and then the CPU can figure out, oh, okay, I need to allocate a whole nother CPU because this CPU is at 80%. So anytime some work, a CPU gets to 80%, we need to bring another one up. And so now the other one's looking for work and doing the little pieces of work. And that's how it can scale up. That whole concept of something looping, looking for work, and then finding work and doing the work, and then when it's done with that work, going back into the loop and all that was so offensive to this guy. Like, you could just tell he had been completely preconditioned to just hate the concept of looping. And you just, but that's what's happening here. This visualization layout is running 60 times a second. It's going to try really hard to run this 60 times a second. If you add a bunch of work into this, you're going to bog it down. It won't be able to. This other visualization service, that code can run 1,000 times a second. I don't care. And if it has extra cycles, use them. If it doesn't, don't use them. Whatever. But it's the one that's updating the screen, or updating the actual underlying, doing calculations and updating the underlying code. This is just taking whatever calculations have been figured out and updating the screen with it. I've just completely divided those two things out. And for me, that is just the simplest, easiest concept to dig around with. But I realize that that's because I spent that time in the 90s working on bus architectures and things like that. So it's really comfortable for me to think of something in a sort of a loop that's just running over and over again. But anyway, so I believe I was back originally, I thought, oh, I would get a visualization ID and then I would get the render item. And now I believe that does not work. So I'm hoping, I think it's visualizations. So let's go to the service and let's look at our variables. Oh, we didn't actually go to the service. We went to where we declared the service. So yeah, so we have our vision, but we also have our visualizations. So that has everything we need in it. So all we're doing is going into memory and saying, hey, go ahead and go over all of the visualizations for me. So I'm going to change this to visualizations. And then we are going to get a viz, and visualizations. I think it's an ST visualization. And now I'm going to console log each visualization. And let's see what we get. So we shouldn't get too many of them because the hash is only different a few times. And I think it's only once when it draws, right? So over here we set the hatch. We set it, and that's fine. We can set the hash as many times as we want. And then this only happened the one time. It's when the hash was out of sync. So something was different in something had changed. Okay, so now we see we have our viz component and we have our left. So we want that one to be at 0. We want that one to be at 200. See, it's already pre-calculated where everything goes. 400. Now we're just sort of unit testing the code, make sure everything looks like the way we expect it to look. 1,000 and 1,200. So as you see, we're sort of bouncing around between the different sort of concepts because we kind of have to move everything forward a little bit at a time. I guess that is where that whole Scrum name came from. And so this is a perfect example of where in the previous Scrum, the previous time around, I was just looping over IDs because I thought that's what I needed. But now I redid everything. So now I have the actual visualizations. So now I have to remember, okay, now I'm here. Well, I have everything I need. So, okay, so let's see if we get our viz component. And then, I guess it's this thing right here. No. Viz.viz component dot. Okay. I don't know. I don't know why this is. And let's just see what we get in here when we look at our viz component, which I could have just looked. I already had it. So now we're looking at the viz, and we want the rendered view child. Man, this is the best I've felt in so long. Do I have to put it? So it knows that it is very possible for us to get here before this view child actually exists. So let's just see if it works. And now we want the native element. Well, I'll tell you, so my son, it was really interesting because we sent him to boot camp for software, full stack developer, React, learning all that stuff. I don't know, about 2.5 years ago, and paid $15,000 for the class. I think there was 35 students in the class. I think there was about 15 of them that had like engineering degrees, and none of them got a job, not a single one. But it is interesting to me because now he's at our local college, Kennesaw State, and he is getting a degree in accounting, and they're desperately trying to teach him coding. Relational databases, all kinds of stuff. They're trying to teach that as part of that. And I think that's exactly what we're experiencing right now, is that the day of, okay, this isn't a fact. This is the desire. The day of the software developer just being a software developer is short. So the day of people knowing how to do coding within their field is upon us. That's what people are trying to make happen. Now the thing is I'm just gonna be honest. In college, computer science, they don't know how to teach coding. They just don't. The best, I would imagine, if you go to veterinary school, there's people who, for animals, there's people who grew up around animals and all that, and then you probably have people that like never saw an animal. They just thought it'd be cool. They read about it in a book, and so the people who grew up around animals will do better, probably. Not always, but will probably do better. We don't have that concept in software development where people are growing up with software development. But anyways, so now I have my visualization. So I believe I can set its left position. So I think what I want to do is just check to see if it exists. Don't attempt to operate on this thing unless all of these exist. And then so I constantly get in trouble. Not trouble, but I get hit for making assignments just so the code would be more readable. That's the only reason I do it. But and then I think it's a div, right? HTML div element. I believe that's right. I think it's like style left. I don't know if that's right, but is equal to viz. I'll be shocked if this actually works. I mean, I won't be shocked, but will be. And then I believe one of these type string. So this is a string, right? Oh no, that's a number. I believe I need a PX next to it. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work or not. Did it work? Are they farther apart? I don't think they're farther apart. Oh, that's because in my, well, it'll be good to look though. See the whole cat, this is all left is 200 px. But this guy up here, he's two. So what happens if I get rid of that? See it ended up. So app viz. So I ended up changing this thing, and I didn't want to change this thing. I wanted to change its parent. I wonder if it has a dot parent. Ooh, that's a bummer. That's a bummer. Console. See, I would have thought that this guy would have a parent. And it may. See, we needed it. So we thought that, I thought that this div was going to be what that was, but it isn't. It is the child div. And then, unfortunately, okay, so let's go ahead. So sometimes it's really helpful that it like kind of two strings it for you in console log, but sometimes it isn't. And this is one of those times where it would be better to have an actual instance of it. So I'm going to reload. And then this is viz dot viz component dot native element. Oh, render view child. Oh my gosh. And so native element, so I would expect a native element to then also have a parent. Yeah, parent element. Okay, so it's the parent element that I want to set its. So I don't know if that's going to work. It's kind of one of those weird things where it didn't complain that it doesn't have it, but it also, look, the navigation or the animation went away. Curious if, let's see what is going on here. So it looks like it's stuck too, like. Let's see. Wonder. Oh, look, it worked. So now we are 200 apart apiece, and then this one should have gone to the next line, but it definitely worked. It is 8:53. Oh shit, I gotta get to work. Everybody, happy coding. Bye.